Today we will discuss the teaching strategy of active learning. Active learning was developed by Dr. Lily Nielsen for learners of all ages with significant disabilities who have a developmental age of 4 or under. This approach is closely tied to evidence-based research, such as the work of Jean Piaget's developmental stages of learners. It views the child's development holistically, including not only motor, cognitive, and sensory skills, but also social and emotional development. This total approach is for instructing individuals with severe multiple disabilities. Today we will discuss the 5 phases of educational treatment within active learning. Dr. Nielsen had nearly 50 years of experience with vision and multiple disabilities. She authored 9 books, 20 articles in professional journals, and led many trainings throughout the world. She was considered the top expert in education of children with multiple disabilities. The phases of educational treatment demonstrate how an adult should interact with the learner. This also discusses how to develop the trusting relationship between the student and the adult. Only after trust has been established can the adult be an effective role model and educator for those individuals with multiple special needs. During this process, we'll also recognize and develop the emotional level of the individual and foster emotional and social skills. Children at the earliest developmental levels will typically need the adult to utilize the techniques in phases 1 through 3. Only when the child is emotionally developed to the level of 24 months will the adult use phase 4 and then later phase 5 with the learner. Once a learner's emotional level has reached the age of 2 years or above, the phase of consequence can then be introduced. Phase 1 in the educational treatment is the offering phase, where awareness and interest are key. We must accept the method of exploration as acceptable, whether that is mouth, throws, taps, bangs, pushes, bites, bends, or etc. The adult must not interfere with that exploration. Verbal responses from the adult should only be to comment directly on what the learner is doing and only during pauses in the activity. At no time should the learner be asked to complete a task or be asked a question. Be very careful, as simply speaking to the learner can be misinterpreted as a request. When the activity is finished, say to the student that you had a great time playing and maybe you will do so again tomorrow. The focus of this phase is that the learner has accepted the adult and the objects into their environment and has begun to accept the offering of the activity. The adult can use this information gained through observation to gain an understanding of the learner and the level of the methods for contacting the world around her or him. Speaking or interrupting may cause the learner to shut down, move away, or engage in negative behavioral responses. If the learner is able to move away from the adult and does so, the adult should not move or chase the learner. Continue to engage in the activity for 5 or 10 more minutes and observe if the learner will return or move towards you. If the learner does not return, then you have identified that you began the activity in too close proximity to the learner. The following day, begin again, only at a further distance away, and possibly for a shorter period of time. During the activity, accidentally toss the objects away from you so that they land near the learner, and hopefully the learner will remain in the area near you. The individual cannot learn anything from the adult if the learner does not want to be near the adult. Remain positive and patient, and they will eventually move toward you or the objects in the area.
Into the adult and needs assistance for balance. Once relaxed again, his balance improves. At this stage, Jack was touching objects briefly and letting go. He is working on learning to grasp items and hold on to them. He is beginning to use 2 hands at midline and bring an item to his mouth. The goal of this activity was to encourage him to use a familiar way of playing, namely pushing, to lead to more grasping and exploring the features of an object. Jack likes vibration and pushing items to create a tapping or other sound. In this video, we see Jack, who is almost 3 years old at this time. He is sitting on a resonance board with Cindy, who is a familiar staff person, and she is presenting a number of different materials to him. Usually there would be a mirror in front of them, so she could observe Jack's reactions. On this day, the mirror was not being used because of the filming. Note that there is a wide variety of objects all around them, so that Cindy can easily reach for other materials as needed. Jack's feet are bare and his pant legs are rolled up, so that he can explore with his feet, as well as his hands and face. He is sitting with his bare feet in a metal bowl with strings of beads. As the video begins, Cindy is holding a vibrating scalp massager at chest level, near Jack's right arm. Note that she does not say anything to him, nor does she give him any instructions. She is not touching him with the vibrating object, but rather is holding it there and allowing him to discover it himself. Be sure to note how long Cindy waits for a response from Jack. It is important to allow Jack plenty of time to explore materials in the way in which he is most comfortable.
During phase 2 of educational treatment, or imitation, the child should be independently active. Observe if the learner will imitate the adult. If they do, it indicates that they are beginning to pay attention to their environment. If they do not imitate the skill or exhibit negative behaviors, the adult should go back to imitating the action of the child again. Ask yourself, was the skill too difficult for the learner or too different than the previous skills? Was it presented in a way that reflected a demand or a request? Make adjustments to the methodology the next time the new skill is introduced to the activity. After a time, the adult can introduce a new action with the object while ensuring that the skill is within the developmental ability level of the learner.
When the video begins, we see Cameron seated in a stroller with his brother Hollis kneeling before him. Throughout the activity, Hollis stays in close physical proximity with his brother. Hollis and Cameron each have a bumpy noodle ball with an 8-inch flexible strand attached to it. They mouth the ball. They then explore the space between the bumps with their index finger.
Bring your hand a little closer to that.
Cameron and Hollis hold the ball by the flexible strand and twirl it in front of them. Cameron puts the string in his mouth briefly, then once again explores the ball with his fingers. Hollis does the same. Cameron rolls the ball around while holding it with his index finger, causing the string to flip back and forth before mouthing the string briefly. He seems to notice that his brother is imitating him.
He's looking at Alice's and back at his.
Cameron takes a short break and turns his face into the side of the stroller. Cameron bites on the whole ball and looks at his brother doing the same thing. Hollis and Cameron twirl their balls by the string and bump them together. Both seem to be smiling.
During educational treatment phase 3, or interaction, the focus of the activity should be on the interaction or turn-taking between the adult and the learner. The choice of the activity while interacting with the learner is based on the learner's emotional level, motor skills, interests, dislikes, and need for repetition. The adult should set up situation environments that will foster interactive games, such as you push and I will pull, or you give me a sound and I'll give you a sound. It is important for the adult to be patient and wait for the learner to take their turn without trying to persuade the learner to act. Simply be quiet and still. If the learner withdraws or turns away, then the adult may have proceeded too quickly to the stage of interaction. You should return to the stage of imitation or even offering.
Jarvis feels Matt's hand while hitting the drum. Jarvis hits the drum and jumps back.
Jar, you're scared. It's okay. It's okay. That will help.
Jarvis feels Matt's hand while he hits the drum.
Bum, 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 bum. Jarvis, turn. It's holding on pretty tight. Bum, bum.
Jarvis feels both of Matt's hands while he plays the xylophone.
He's singing over there?
Matt plays the drum with a drumstick. Jarvis holds another drumstick and hits the drum.
Yeah, go.
All right, Jarvis.
Go. Go.
Matt takes his turn playing the drum. With his classroom teacher, Jarvis reviews the trip with his experience book.
The drum store. Wow.
What's he looking at, you think, Joshua?
Store. Yeah. Turn the page. Boom 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 boom. Yeah?
So there was a...
Oh, Jarvis and that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're happy. Jarvis and Matt were exploring the drum store.
During the phase of sharing the work, it's all about new experiences, challenges, activities, and interactions. The environments and activities are introduced that give the learner tasks to do that are based on the things the learner has experienced success with. In the beginning, the task can be completed in a few seconds up to a few minutes without any consideration for how perfectly the learner can complete them. If they are reluctant to do the task after being asked several times, the adult can suggest they do it together. Let the learner know which part of the task they will complete and which part the learner will complete. The adult must make sure to give the learner plenty of time to complete the task. But if they still won't do it, consider it as it may be too hard. In complex tasks, the adult may need to use various techniques, such as offering and imitation, for different parts. Let the learner know how long the task will last and what will follow. Remember that you should only proceed or engage in this stage of educational treatment when the learner's emotional level is above 24 months. During the treatment phase of consequence, We will model how consequences work for the learner through a discussion of the adult's actions. For example, stating to the learner, "I have to stop playing and cook dinner, or you will not have anything to eat." Or, "I need to ask you to wait. I need to find a clean shirt for you." The adult will need to begin to set up situations where the learner can experience the consequences of their actions. For example, if you want me to pour some milk, you must put your glass on the table. The adult may accept a less than perfect response from the learner and may need to offer encouragement either through prompting or modeling, such as, "See, you can put your glass here." The learner begins to understand choice making at this time. During the phases, it's important to experiment and play with children to gain more experience and become comfortable teaching in the 5 phases of active learning. It may be beneficial for you to video your sessions with the children and identify what you're doing wrong. You will make mistakes and it's okay. Just review and revise. It is a fluid relationship between the phases, which means that you can use 1, 2, or more phases at the same time while teaching a concept or a skill. The end result of active learning is to build a trusting relationship to enable the child to become an independent learner and be comfortable within their environment. Lily Nielsen developed the Little Room as a rich and safe place for children to develop spatial relations and object concepts. They should be properly equipped with acoustically responsive toys and visually responsive toys. The natural feedback to the learner with every movement to develop fine motor skills and sometimes gross motor skills will enable the child to be an active learner within their environment. The resonance board is made with a thin plywood panel for maximum feedback. The board will vibrate to every movement of the learner and encourages gross motor movement. This will provide sensory feedback to the learner. The support bench allows the learner to have a different view of the activity. It also allows them to lie prone with hands and feet free and to coordinate movements of arms and legs. The support bench promotes midline activity. Lily's Hopsa dress safely provides vertical orientation and support without the legs bearing weight. It increases blood circulation, learning to balance, and to stand to walk. It provides learners with great freedom and improved control.
Below her feet are a tub of sunflower seeds, a container with soil and pine cones, a tub of water with sponges floating in it, a bucket with a large hosta plant, and a tub of rocks. We see Patty Oberzut tucking a number of hosta leaves in the Hopsa dress that Kyra wears. These plants were chosen by Patty because they are edible. Kyra is barefoot, so she could feel and explore items with her feet and be motivated to move from one item to another. First we see Kyra turning slowly in the Hopsa dress while her feet trail through the tub of seeds. She moves briefly to the container of soil and explores it before returning to the seeds.
The ESIF board allows the child to engage in lower motor activities. It teaches balance when standing at a wall with a rail, or sitting on or pushing on with feet while seated. It promotes leg and feet movement through kicking and facilitates the child's learning to sit unsupported and to develop the gross motor skills necessary for learning to walk and stand. The scratch board teaches scratching and using fingertips, which leads to manipulating of objects. It also helps with the repetition of actions to establish memory, and you can use many types of textures and objects on boards, vests, and belts. This type of position board, known as the grasp and let go, will allow the child to begin movements of manipulating objects. They will also begin to experience tactile qualities of objects and continue the repetition of movements. This type of board allows the object to stay close to the board so that the child always knows where it stands. The position board of grasp and keep and find will allow the repetition of grasping and letting go will lead to the ability of grasping and keep finding. The user will benefit from holding the object and relocating the object for future use. All activities should be completed with active exploration and examination guided by the child. For further learning and resources on the educational treatment of active learning or the manipulatives used during active learning, please refer to www.activelearningspace.org or the Texas School for the Blind, Perkins School for the Blind, or Penrigton Center for the Blind.